Hey guys, this is Mr. Saints Godzilla 21, and well, the Saints Row reboot is finally here. I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for my thoughts on this game, but I had to make sure to complete enough of the story and side activities to fully form a fair opinion. And well, after 53 total hours of playing, completing both the story and the criminal ventures, I feel now that I can dive in and tell you whether or not this game lives up to the series. As just a heads up, this video is completely unscripted. If I wrote a script and everything, it'd probably be like a month before I got a video out. And there's just no way I can have you guys wait that long. So I apologize in advance if this is all over the place. I haven't done a video like this before. But with that said, let's just dive in. The simplest way I could describe the reboot is that it's one of the most mixed bags I've ever played. There is some fun to be had for sure, but at the same time you have a story that is downright cringy and gameplay mechanics that were handled better in the past. And that's not even mentioning the game-breaking glitches that are still present even after the latest 16GB update. But okay, let's look past that for just a minute and talk about some of the positives. The Wanted app feels like an appropriate evolution of the Hitman activity. Instead of going to a location and performing a single objective to have a target spawn, the missions here are a lot more in-depth and have you performing a wide range of fun tasks. Whether it's impersonating a limo driver to kill a target on the train tracks or a monster truck derby in the desert, these missions are honestly more enjoyable than a good portion of the filler levels in the story. The game also offers a wide range of accessibility features. You can adjust the size of the mini-map, turn off the HUD altogether, and thankfully turn off the health bars. You can also remap every single button, which I recommend doing immediately because the default controls are garbage. Like, I don't have to say anything, just take a look at these. I mean, down on the D-pad to crouch? That's just absurd. And if you're just looking for pure fun in this game, then I absolutely recommend co-op. I know it's a buggy mess right now, and I mean buggy, but without a doubt, co-op is the most fun you can have in this game.
How are we gonna lose these guys?
It goes especially well with the tools in the sandbox, like the tether and the signature abilities. Man, get your friend in a chopper with a tether while you're driving a tank, and you're in for a fun time. And one last thing I really like, but I don't even think it was intentional, is that you can combine emotes. Most of the combinations are ridiculous, but then there are some that are just amazing. And with that, that's basically most of the positives I have for this game. I do have a few more good things to say as we go along, but for now, we really need to discuss the story. If you were worried the story would be a cringe fest, then I'm sorry to say, but you were 100% correct.
Oh, good.
My biggest fear going into this game was that the tone would be a combination of Saints Row 2 with Watch Dogs 2, but instead it's more like Saints Row the 3rd meets Sunset Overdrive. The moment you meet the new characters is when any glimmer of hope you may have had is lost. The writing and characteristics of the new Saints feels on par with NPCs you would gladly run over in the previous games.
Brunch is a time for friends and mimosas, not debates on morality.
All right.
There's such a lack of self-awareness that it feels like you're watching an episode of Friends, just without the laugh track.
The only way this could be better is if you put on a fucking shirt.
Dinner and a show, baby.
And sadly, it doesn't get any better from here. Whether it's the characters discussing the next karaoke night, traveling the city to get Kevin a damn fast food toy, and doing fucking LARPing in the desert.
Hey, Eli, what's this $2.99 stuff?
'Tis but a microtransaction. Check thine coin purse for funds.
Absolutely none of this feels like Saints Row, and it's simply heartbreaking. Now, it could be argued that this concept would have worked if the boss retained his personality from the past, but instead Volition went for this go-with-the-flow attitude that simply makes the situations even worse. The only somewhat redeemable character is the 5th hidden saint Nuwali, but his motivations are so confusing it ruins any hope he could have provided. The dialogue feels poorly written, the humor is complete trash, and the overall story is the most predictable thing I've ever seen. And, I hate to say this, but if this wasn't called Saints Row, I would have never completed the story. But there are some fun missions in the story, I'll give them that, but if you're not a fan of these characters, I wouldn't say it's worth the 7 to 10 hours to play them.
Whoa, bail, jump!
But beyond all that, I think the most criminal thing is the lack of attention on the rival gang leaders. In the past, you got a sense for their motivations, why they were doing what they were doing, and how the Saints were getting in the way of their goals. It helped give a purpose to everything you did, but here you don't get a single cutscene with the gang leader alone. Volition's focus was so tightly wrapped around the new Saints that it makes the rival gangs feel hollow and forgettable. There's absolutely no satisfaction for each gang you overcome because you know so little about them. It's just so underwhelming. So yeah, if you get this game, it's definitely not going to be for the story. But what about the gameplay? Does the gameplay make up for everything else? Well, in some aspects, I would say yes, but others? Definitely not. I've already discussed the accessibility features, but man, you really need to tweak this game's controls to feel right. All the default options just feel off for an open world game, especially if you played the older Saints Row titles. The auto aim especially dampers what could be a fun gameplay loop. It's either ridiculously strong preventing any challenge, or it's too weak that you're constantly fighting against your crosshair to get a hit on an enemy. After playing long enough though, you can adjust to it, but I just don't know why they didn't go with Saints Row III or hell, even AOM's aiming system. My last issue with controls is that aircraft handling has been heavily downgraded. When you're in a chopper, you can't use the bumpers to turn like you could in the past, and the VTOL's camera can't be moved when you're in flight mode. It just baffles me that even Saints Row III had flight control options, but this game doesn't. Also, I might as well mention this here, there are no planes in this game. I absolutely love flying planes in the other games, so not having them here is a massive disappointment. Something interesting is that the game's difficulty is completely customizable. You can change how much damage enemies can take, how hard notoriety can be, the length of time objectives, etc. It's nice you can adjust the difficulty to fit your playstyle, and with everything at max, the game is even harder than Saints Row 1's What Must Go Up mission. Another odd choice is health regeneration. Instead of having a full bar, it's similar to Far Cry 3 where it's broken up into chunks that can eventually be upgraded. The only way to fully fill your health bar is by performing takedowns on enemies. Now, I will admit these takedowns are pretty cool, and there's over 60 unique animations that you'll get to see. However, you will begin to notice the same animations over and over, which can get pretty lackluster. You also can't perform these takedowns on pedestrians unless they attack you first, so that kinda takes away from the fun you can have in the open world.
Dead as a doornail.
There's also these new skill abilities which could be used when your flow meter is up. Now, I could see these sounding cool on paper, but honestly, a lot of these just feel like unused Agents of Mayhem abilities. I would have much preferred to simply have a grenade button rather than having to click two buttons to occasionally throw one. Another thing is that there's a lack of throwables. You have satchel charges in this new thruster weapon, but that's basically it. There's no Molotovs, pipe bombs, flashbangs, anything like that. And much like foregrips being forced on all two-handed weapons, it's annoying seeing the throwing animation is identical to having your fist out. And see, what else? Oh, did I mention this game has no cheats, no replayable missions, and no replayable cutscenes? So yeah, if you want to play around with unique cheat codes, replay the more exciting missions of the story, or you simply wanted to watch a cutscene again, too goddamn bad. Just less reasons to continue playing this game. Anyway, when you're not playing the story, a majority of your time will be taking place in the side hustles and the criminal ventures. Side hustles are mostly filler content where you're either riding shotgun while being attacked, using the tether on a chopper to steal goods, fighting waves of enemies, or racing solo through the desert. They're not anything too special, but they at least have some bonus objectives that adds to their replayability. The criminal ventures are a big focus of the game since they basically replace the activities from the past. So the question now is, are they a worthy change? Well, sadly, I absolutely have to say no. There are a couple standout ventures, but a majority of them are simply copy and paste go from A to B or wave defense objectives. Brighter Future is the most guilty example where all you do is drive a waste truck across the map. Sure, there's the added risk of not damaging the toxic barrels, but never are you chased or have a time limit. The most excitement you might receive doing this is killing 2 or 3 infected pedestrians before getting in the truck. And I hate to say that many of the ventures use this repetitive formula. What I believe made the activities so great before is that they all felt like mini-games. You were doing actions and objectives you couldn't normally do in the free roam. The criminal ventures here are borderline diversions with very little complexity. Like, let's pretend has you performing heist. That sounds freaking awesome! Until you realize every single one is just you as the getaway driver as NPCs rob a place off screen. But easily the most disappointing is the dojo. If you're expecting Saints Row 2 Fight Club, then oh boy, you're gonna be pissed. The entire venture consists of you fighting the same copy and pasted enemies, with the only difference being the melee weapon in the location. And on top of that, the melee in this game is completely broken. I mean, just look at this. Though there are some decent ventures like Incubator that has you testing private martial tech. These feel like actual missions and serve as a great way to break up the casual gameplay. Then you have some ventures that are returning old activities. Insurance fraud is back in the form of the Shady Oak venture, except it isn't as fun. Controlling your boss as a ragdoll feels more clunky than before, and I believe it's the main reason vehicles explode now while in adrenaline mode. Mayhem and Chop Shop are the other returning activities, and I have to say, they play fairly identical to the past. Overall, the criminal ventures seem to drastically vary in quality. Some are genuinely fun, whereas others feel rushed or downright unfinished.
First strike!
As for customization, there's been some much appreciated improvements, but at the same time there's some oddly downgraded features. Like I've discussed player customization in the past. The RGB slider, separate body and build options, the custom boss browser, and the return in socks and layers are all very nice. But then it's apparent that submenus for clothing and advanced face sliders are missing. Without going into every minute detail, the overall options are better than Saints Row III, but are still considerably lacking when compared to Saints Row 2. Weapon customization is easily the best we've seen in the series. Whether you want to change all the colors on a weapon or straight up change its model like in Saints Row 4, it gives you a lot of variety for how you want your arsenal to look. Though it is a bit disappointing that we can't change attachments on the weapon like scopes and silencers. But easily, vehicle customization has reached its peak in this game. Nearly every customization option from the past is here, including great new additions like adjusting the age of paint, the signature abilities, and selecting the sound of your horn and engine. But by far my favorite new addition is being able to customize aircrafts. And this isn't just a throwaway change the paint a bit case, there is genuine options like changing the landing gear, tail, and the engine. Let's move on to one of the most important aspects to any open world game, its map. Santo Ileso is simply breathtaking. Unlike Steelport, you always know where you are in the world because each district is so distinct. They've also gone above and beyond when it comes to the city's art and lore. There are locations scattered throughout the map where all you do is learn about the history of Santo Ileso and earn rewards for it. And to everyone asking, no, I am not the voice of the narrator, please stop telling me this.
Did you know?
And, my god, the Easter eggs in this game are incredible. I would go as far as saying they're on par with Saints Row 2's Easter eggs, if not more so.
Sorrow, Clementine.
Though it saddens me to say that there are two elements holding the city back, and that is the lack of interiors and the NPCs. There's so many incredible locations that you just wish you can go inside of, but sadly, there's nothing. There's such a lack of interiors, in fact, you can almost count them all on your hands. It's just a massive shame, like there is not a single casino you can enter. That is just criminal for a map like this. Also, there are only two cribs in the entire game you can enter. And if that's not messed up enough, one of the cribs becomes unavailable the second you start the second act of the game. Just why? You do get to unlock one more crib after completing the criminal ventures, but it doesn't even have an interior. As for the NPCs, they're certainly an upgrade over Saints Row III, but not by much. There is a decent amount of action nodes and unique models per district, but their AI makes them feel more like a backdrop to the world rather than being the beating heart and soul of Santo Ileso. It's also clear that NPCs spawn far less when you're in a vehicle, making the streets often look empty most of the time. Though I do appreciate that they're far more aggressive towards the player. One of my favorite interactions with the NPC is when I accidentally bumped their vehicle while on a mission. For the next 5 minutes, they actually stalked me across the map. Each time I stopped, they would stop too. It wasn't until I reached my destination that they got out of their car and attacked. This was amazing, and I just wish they acted like this more often. But then in certain aspects, they've been downgraded more than we've ever seen in the series. Like NPCs that run stores can't even be killed or will even react to having a gun pointed at them. It's just confusing that the most basic feature of robbing a store that's been standard in any open world crime game isn't here. You also will never see NPCs randomly causing trouble like in Saints Row 2. It really adds some life to the world when you unexpectedly encounter a fight that you had no part in causing. Anyway, I do have to give some props for animals being in the game. We haven't seen wildlife of any kind in a Saints Row game since 2, and here there are both birds and coyotes. It's just an appreciated element that makes the open world more enjoyable. And of course, we can't talk about this game without discussing the glitches. I started playing Friday last week and initially brushed off most of the bugs since the day 1 patch wasn't out yet. But now that we have the updates, it's very concerning that nearly all the issues I encountered before are still present. The most common glitch I encounter is the game soft locking when using the Style app or opening the Empire table. Don't you soft... God damn it. But on top of that, there just seems to be a lot of T-posing, NPCs duplicating, and just so many random things that hurt the overall enjoyment of the game. But by far the most frustrating glitch that I've encountered is the criminal venture objectives not appearing. For the radio station venture, it was blind luck I was able to complete it by going to random radio towers and getting the option to hit them, even though I haven't completed the wave attacks that weren't appearing on the map. If you're playing in single player, most of the glitches can at least be tolerable, but in co-op, dear God, it's bad. I kid you not, my game has crashed a total of 15 times just being in co-op. And not only that, it can take up to an hour just to be able to connect to your partner's session. It's just so unbelievably broken after the latest updates, it seems like Volition needed a couple extra months just to get it somewhat stable. So at the end of the day, we have a Saints Row with a poorly written, cringy story, gameplay that's lackluster compared to the earlier titles, side activities that drastically range in quality, and glitches that cripple the overall experience. Needless to say, I and many other Saints Row fans have been very disappointed in the final product. Now, there are some good elements, exploring the world, playing in co-op, most of the customization, and some of the side activities, but compared to everything else, you're just left with a very average experience. And I know after all this, people are more curious to know what exactly I saw 3 years ago during my trip to Volition. Trust me, there's nothing more I'd like to do than go point by point on what I saw, but I'm still under an NDA till next year. I can't just open up now that the game is released, but what I can tell you is that I saw a cake in the oven with all the promise in the world. I was told so many incredible plans and ideas, but unfortunately, I can't say many of them lived up to the hype. I know Volition wanted nothing more than to make an incredible comeback after Agents of Mayhem, but somewhere along the line they either simply didn't have the time or resources to reach their and our expectations. Now, I don't know what to expect for the future of the series, if there will even be a next after all this, but all I know is with the foundation the game has laid down, they can only improve from here. However, if they decide to continue following the story of these new characters, I don't want any part of it. I'm sorry, but I can never see this cast being the face of Saints Row. I would have been a lot more forgiving if this was a spin-off title or a spiritual successor, but having the Saints Row name leaves a lot of expectations behind it that this game simply hasn't matched. As it stands now, if I had to give this game a score, it'd either be a 5.5 or a 6 out of 10. I know that sounds harsh, but I had to be honest with how I felt experiencing the reboot. Well, anyway, I hope you at least enjoyed the video. If you'd like to express your thoughts on the reboot, please feel free to leave a comment below. Like always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.
I had no idea how far my shame could extend. Don't worry,
Saints Godzilla.
I'll fix this. No, you won't.
Volition.
You'll continue to disappoint me.